My relatives kissed up to Grandpa for years to get his inheritance, and he left everything to me instead. I never thought I'd end up the center of a family war. But apparently, nothing brings out hidden claws quite like a will. The family setup. My grandfather, let's call him Henry, was the quiet anchor of our family. He was 84 when he passed, sharp as ever, sarcastic, and funny in the dry way only old men can be. Grandma died a decade ago, leaving him a beautiful old farmhouse, a few acres of land, and a carefully managed investment portfolio that he never bragged about but everyone knew existed. I'm 28, an only child. My dad passed away when I was 12, and Mom remarried and moved out of state when I was 20. I stayed near Grandpa because, well, he was my person. He came to my school plays. He taught me to change oil in my beat-up car. Every Sunday we had pancakes and crossword puzzles. No agenda, just love. The rest of the family, his 2 daughters, my aunts, their spouses, and a pack of cousins, visited mostly on holidays. They loved to talk about family values, but everyone could see the competition brewing under the surface. The gold rush begins. When Grandpa turned 80, the inheritance games began. It started small. My Aunt Linda suddenly remembered to call him every week. My Aunt Carol began baking his favorite pies and dropping them off, just because. Cousins who hadn't visited in years started showing up with their kids, acting like every drawing was a priceless gift for great-grandpa. At first, Grandpa thought it was funny. They're circling like buzzards, he'd whisper to me when they left. I'd laugh, but it made me uncomfortable. Because even though I visited all the time, they started acting like I was the intruder. The not-so-subtle insults. It wasn't long before the jabs started. Must be nice to live so close. You probably get plenty of alone time with Grandpa. Careful, dear. People might think you're trying to get on his good side. Oh, she's the favorite, no wonder she's always here. I shrugged it off. I wasn't after anything. I just loved the man. But behind the scenes, things were getting uglier. The family meetings. By 2023, Grandpa's health began to slow. Nothing major, just age. That's when my aunt started hosting family meetings. Translation: thinly veiled attempts to push Grandpa into estate planning sessions. I went to one. They spent 2 hours, casually, discussing how complicated farm maintenance must be and how unfair probate court can be. Linda floated the idea of everyone pitching in to help manage finances, aka gaining access to his accounts. Grandpa smiled politely, sipped his coffee, and said, "Thanks, but I have it handled." End of meeting. Grandpa's secret. One snowy night, about 6 months before he passed, Grandpa called me over. "Kid," he said, he always called me kid, even though I'm nearly 30. "I need you to promise me something." He pulled out a folder. His updated will. Inside, everything was clearly laid out, the house, the land, the investments, even the old fishing boat. All of it was left to me. My jaw dropped. "Grandpa, you don't have to." "I know I don't." "That's the point," he said. "They see me as a wallet. You see me as a person. You were there when no one else was. This is my choice." I tried to protest, but he cut me off. "It's not a reward. It's peace of mind. I know you'll care for this place, not sell it for quick cash." He made me promise to keep it quiet until the reading of the will. I agreed, heart pounding. The final days. Grandpa passed away quietly in his sleep this past spring. The funeral was exactly how he wanted, small, simple, and full of old jazz music. The days between the funeral and the will reading were tense. My aunts hovered like hawks. Linda actually asked me if I'd encouraged Grandpa to write a will. Carol kept dropping hints like, "It'll be nice when we can finally make decisions about the farm." I kept my promise and said nothing. The reading. When the attorney began reading, I watched their faces like a movie. Small personal gifts to each relative, family heirlooms, photo albums. Modest trust funds set aside for the great-grandkids' college tuition. And then, the big one. To my beloved grandchild, me, I leave the residence, the surrounding property, and all remaining financial assets. The room went silent. I swear you could hear the HVAC humming. Linda's face turned the color of a ripe tomato. Carol opened her mouth like a fish and forgot to close it. My cousins just stared. The lawyer continued, calmly outlining that Grandpa had updated the will with full mental capacity, witnessed and notarized. He even left a handwritten note. To my kid, thank you for making my last years joyful, not transactional. Don't let anyone make you feel guilty for my choice. Love, Grandpa. I nearly cried right there. The aftermath. The explosion came later. Linda accused me of manipulating a lonely old man. Carol threatened to contest the will until the lawyer reminded her that Grandpa recorded a video statement for proof of intent. One cousin screamed that I was stealing their childhood home, even though none of them had lived there since high school. When I refused to split things fairly, they launched a smear campaign, family Facebook posts about greedy youth, emails about blood money, even a group text that said, "You'll regret this when you're alone at Thanksgiving." I responded once. Grandpa made his choice. I honored his wishes. This isn't up for debate. Then I blocked them all. Cleaning the house. The weeks after were bittersweet. I walked through each room of the farmhouse, touching the worn banister, opening the creaky kitchen cabinets, smelling the faint scent of Grandpa's pipe tobacco. I found dozens of little notes hidden in drawers. Check the attic in spring, leaks sometimes. Your grandma's cinnamon roll recipe. Don't forget extra nutmeg. Proud of you, kid. Each one was a quiet confirmation that he'd planned this for me all along. Moving forward. I kept my job in town but moved into the farmhouse. I refinished the porch swing. I planted the garden Grandpa always wanted to expand. Every Sunday I still make pancakes, just like we used to. Sometimes I catch myself looking out over the fields at sunset and whispering, "I hope I'm making you proud." I think he'd say yes. What I learned. 1. Love can't be faked forever. My relatives treated Grandpa like a prize to win. He saw through it. 2. Kindness isn't weakness. Visiting him wasn't a strategy, it was love. That's why it mattered. 3. Boundaries protect peace. Blocking my aunts was painful but necessary. Their bitterness isn't my burden. Part 2, After the Will, Family Wars and Hidden Agendas. The weeks after the will reading were intense. I thought the worst was over, but apparently, greed doesn't take a nap. The subtle attacks. At first, my aunts tried subtle digs. Linda texted me daily with helpful advice about managing the property. Carol sent emails about potential tax implications and legal responsibilities. Both cousins started popping up at the farmhouse under the guise of checking in, but really scrutinizing every corner, every renovation I started. I smiled politely, answered when necessary, and kept a careful record of everything. Grandpa had always warned me, people will try to bend you like a spring. Don't snap first. The passive-aggressive moves. Then came the passive-aggressive maneuvers. Linda posted on Facebook about family unity and subtly tagged me in memes about greedy kids ruining inheritance. Carol sent me a gift, a decorative keychain with the message, "Remember, it's just stuff." The cousins started messaging Liam, my nephew, sending him candy and toys, clearly trying to win over my son and make me look selfish. It was exhausting. I documented everything. If they tried to challenge the will, I wanted proof of manipulation and bad faith. The lawsuit threat. 2 months in, I got a lawyer's call. Carol had hired one, claiming undue influence and alleging that I pressured Grandpa into leaving me everything. I forwarded the call to my attorney and stayed calm. Grandpa had anticipated this. He left video testimony stating his intent, explaining that I'd been a loyal companion and that all decisions were made independently. The lawyer I hired called it a slam dunk. Carol's side eventually dropped the idea after seeing the evidence. Quiet victories. Despite their tantrums, small victories started stacking up. 1. Farmhouse. I finished renovating the porch, installed solar panels, and started a little vegetable garden. 2. Financials. Investments Grandpa left were intact. I consolidated them, ensuring my cousins couldn't touch a cent. 3. Family relations. I slowly built a bridge with one cousin who quietly admitted she never liked the scheming behavior. I even invited her over to help with gardening. It felt almost normal. The emotional toll. But it wasn't easy. I had nightmares about my aunts showing up with lawsuits. I sometimes woke up angry, remembering the weeks of subtle harassment and the smug smiles at the funeral. I realized something important: protecting the inheritance was about protecting Grandpa's legacy and my own peace. Therapy helped me cope. My counselor taught me to separate ownership of property from ownership of feelings. I didn't have to like my aunts. I didn't have to invite them back into my life. I just had to protect what was mine, and that included my mental health. A small surprise. About 4 months after the reading, I received a letter in the mail. It was from Grandpa's old friend, Mr. Thompson, who had been a business partner for decades. He wrote, "Your grandfather always said you were the only one who truly understood him. Don't let them steal more than money, don't let them steal your peace." It was the first time anyone outside the immediate family acknowledged the truth. I framed it and placed it on my desk. Teaching the next generation. Liam, my son, started coming to the farmhouse every weekend. I began telling him stories about Grandpa, not just funny anecdotes, but lessons on integrity, generosity, and the importance of seeing through false kindness. One day, as we worked on the old garden shed, he looked at me and said, "Mom, I don't think people should only be nice to get stuff." I smiled. Exactly. Moving forward. It's been 6 months since the will reading. My aunts and cousins have largely retreated, realizing there's nothing left to manipulate. Some try social media jabs, but I no longer check notifications obsessively. Life is peaceful. The farmhouse is lively again, the garden is thriving, and for the first time, I feel like this property is truly ours. I've even considered hosting a small family picnic, carefully selected people only. No manipulators allowed. Grandpa would have approved. Lessons learned. 1. Inheritance reveals true colors. People show their greed more clearly than they ever do in normal life. 2. Protect what's yours, emotionally and legally. Grandpa's foresight with the video and updated will save me months of stress. 3. Peace, family drama. Sometimes, loving your family means loving them from a distance. 6 months had passed since Grandpa's will reading, and I finally thought I could breathe. The farmhouse felt like home, Liam was thriving, and the garden was flourishing. But I underestimated how persistent my aunts and cousins could be. They hadn't given up, they were just changing tactics. The passive sabotage begins. It started subtly. Linda sent an email about safety concerns, claiming the porch swing might collapse. She included a picture of a slightly weathered beam. I replied politely, confirming it was fine and attached a recent inspection report. Carol showed up unannounced under the guise of helping with chores, then proceeded to rearrange items in the kitchen and leave sticky notes saying, "This is dangerous," near electrical outlets. Cousins began messaging Liam online, asking about chores and planting, helpful gardening tips, trying to influence him. It was infuriating, but I stayed calm. Grandpa had always said, patience and proof are your friends. Calling their bluff. One weekend, Linda tried to escalate. She texted, We know your grandfather would have wanted to share the farmhouse. Maybe reconsider your stance before it's too late. I saved the message, calmly replied. Grandpa made his choice. I will honor it. Please refrain from any further interference. No response. Typical. 2 days later, Carol posted a passive-aggressive meme on social media, tagging the cousins and subtly implying I was a greedy child. Liam, surprisingly, laughed and said, "They're just mad because you're not giving them your farm, Mom." He was right. It was never about safety or concern, it was pure resentment. The water line incident. The first real sabotage attempt happened in early summer. I woke up one morning to discover a minor leak in the old farmhouse water line. At first, I assumed age and weather were to blame. But after calling the plumber, I noticed someone had tampered with the shut-off valve, loosened it slightly so water pressure fluctuated. It was clear. They were testing boundaries. I immediately documented everything, took photos, and installed a smart water monitor. Full boundary enforcement. I realized subtlety wouldn't work anymore. 1. Security system upgrade. I installed cameras around the perimeter, at entrances, and inside key rooms. 2. Access control. Only Liam, my closest friend, and contractors I personally hired could enter. No exceptions. 3. Communication freeze. All aunts, uncles, and cousins were blocked from phone, email, and social media. Any attempt to contact was logged and stored. 4. Legal documentation. My lawyer drafted a formal notice. Any trespass or interference with property or finances would result in immediate legal action. The confrontation. Linda showed up one evening, dripping rainwater on the porch, demanding to speak. I opened the door carefully, staying calm. "You're making a huge mistake. Grandpa would want this to be a family home," she said. Grandpa did want this to be a family home, he chose me to manage it because I cared for him, not because I kissed him up for money. She paused. I could see her anger flicker into disbelief. "You'll regret this. Everyone will hate you. I have peace. That's more valuable than approval from someone who manipulates and lies." She left after muttering threats, but my security cameras had recorded everything. Legal protection was now in place. Allies in the family. Interestingly, some relatives began coming around quietly. My younger cousin, who never liked the scheming, asked for gardening lessons. A few neighbors who knew Grandpa reached out with kind words and offered help with renovations. I realized that even in toxic families, genuine relationships exist, they just need to be carefully nurtured. The real victory. By the end of summer, the farmhouse was fully functional, renovated, and secure. The garden produced its first real harvest. Liam had learned responsibility, respect, and the importance of setting boundaries. Best of all, I felt unshakable. For the first time, I truly owned not just the farmhouse and inheritance, but my decisions, my life, and my peace. Lessons learned, Part 3. 1. Toxicity can be persistent. Expect sabotage attempts if people feel entitled to what isn't theirs. 2. Documentation is everything. Keep records, emails, photos, videos. It protects your rights and sanity. 3. Boundaries are your strongest asset. Legal, physical, and emotional boundaries aren't cruelty, they're survival. 4. Genuine allies exist, even in messy families. Focus on the people who show up out of love, not obligation. By the next winter, the farmhouse had truly become mine. Liam and I spent weekends cooking in the kitchen, reading by the fireplace, and fixing the old tools Grandpa had left behind. The garden had been cleared for winter, but every seed planted this year promised a new beginning. My aunts and cousins tried one last wave of passive-aggressive contact, a text here, a vague social media post there, even a letter mailed to my old address. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. I had already set boundaries, documented everything, and had legal protection. Interestingly, the hostility faded on its own. Without my reaction, there was no fuel for their drama. I realized something Grandpa had always known: people who depend on manipulation for control lose interest when it no longer works. I started inviting only the family members who genuinely cared about me into my life: Liam's cousins, a quiet aunt, and a few longtime neighbors. The rest? They exist in the past, not my present. One evening, while sitting on the porch swing Grandpa had loved, Liam looked up at me and said, "Mom, Grandpa picked the right person." I smiled, feeling the weight of years of manipulation lift off my shoulders. Grandpa hadn't just left me his property, he'd left me a lesson in boundaries, integrity, and the kind of family worth keeping. I finally understood: peace and respect are more valuable than money, more enduring than titles or possessions. The farmhouse was mine, but more importantly, my life was mine. I've kept it exactly how Grandpa wanted, and in doing so, I honor both him and the values he instilled in me. No one can take that away, not a single relative, not even the greediest.